In a small village of Ireti, situated by a lush forest and a winding river, lived an orphan named Amara. Her parents had died during a stormy night when she was born, leaving her alone in the world. Instead of receiving sympathy from the villagers, Amara was shunned and treated as a bad omen. The villagers believed that the storm which brought her into the world was a curse, so they kept their distance. Amara's early years was filled with loneliness and hardship. She moved from house to house, doing small taxes for scrap of food and a place to sleep. Despite her struggle, she remained hopeful and kind, often finding comfort by the river, singing and dreaming of a lovely family. One day, while near the river, Amara saw an elder woman struggling with a heavy load of firewood. Acting on impulse, she helped the woman, not knowing that this her act of kindness would change her life. The woman, grateful for Amara's help, introduced herself as Mama Wura, a priestess devoted to the Iyemoja, the goddess of the river and the protector of women and children. Seeing Amara's loneliness and rejection, Mama Wura felt a strong desire to help her. She invited Amara to her home, a small hut decorated with cowries, shells, and white cloth. She began teaching her about Iyemoja. Amara learned to connect to the river energy, and she found comfort in the rituals and prayers, forming a deep bond with the goddess. The villagers, however, grew suspicious of Amara's association with Mama Wura, and her newfound confidence. Rumors spread, and Amara's isolation deepened. Yet, she drew strength from her faith, often seen speaking softly to the river or meditating. During a seasonal festival, a disaster struck the village. A sudden fire broke out, threatening to destroy everything. In chaos, Amara, guided by what she believed to be Iyemoja's voice, rushed to the river. At the river bank, Amara prayed desperately to Iyemoja, asking for help to save the village that had once rejected her. As her tears fell into the river, the skies over Ireti darkened and heavy rain began to fall, extinguishing the flames and saving the village. After the fire, as the villagers assessed the damage, they found Amara still by the river, soaked but calm. The elders who had once ignored her now looked at her with amazement and gratitude. In the days after the miraculous rain that saved the village, whispers filled the air. The villagers, once so quick to reject Amara, began to question the force that had intervened in their time of need. Many came to believe that Iyemoja, the river goddess, had heard Amara's prayers and answered them. Slowly, gratitude replaced suspicion, but some still doubt Amara's connection to the divine. Amara, meanwhile, remained humble. Despite the shifting attitude of the villagers, she continued a simple life with Mama Wura, assisting in the priestess' duty and tending to the river shrine. Her heart was mixed of gratitude for the change in her faith and uncertainty about the future. One morning, as the sun rose over the village, the elders summoned Amara to the village square. The elders, dressed in their regular white agbada, stood solemn around a great bamboo tree, a symbol of wisdom and strength in Ireti. They sought answers, not only about the fire, but about Amara's connection to Iyemoja. Chief Durojaye, the eldest among them, addressed her with measured words. "Child, you have saved this village, when even the strongest among us could not. Tell us, how did you call upon the rain? Was it the Iyemoja's blessing?" Amara, standing before the village for the first time, not as an outcast, but as someone they now looked to for guidance, spoke softly but clearly. "I did nothing but pray. Iyemoja is the mother of us all, and she hears the cry of those in need. It was not my power, but hers." The villagers listened in silence, many struck by the purity and humility in her voice. However, some others remained skeptical. They feared the growing influence of Mama Wura and the power Amara seems to have gained, not through ambition, but through her connection to the divine. As time passed, the village elders decided to hold a grand ceremony to honor Iyemoja, thanking her for saving the village and acknowledging Amara's role. The event would be significant, inviting neighboring villages and bringing offerings to the river. But not everyone was pleased with the idea of placing Amara at the center of the celebration. Within the village, envy stirred among some, particularly those who had previously shunned her. Chief Durojaye's son, Ekene, known for his ambition, felt threatened by Amara's sudden rise. He began to plot against her, whispering doubts into the ears of the villagers and the elders. As the preparation for the grand ceremony continued, Amara felt growing unease. She had never sought power, only acceptance and love. But she sensed the tension building. One evening, while meditating at the river bank, Iyemoja's voice echoed softly in her mind, warning her of the dangers ahead. "The river holds secrets, child," Iyemoja whispered, "but those who walk with pure hearts would never be forsaken." Amara knew that Iyemoja's protection was with her, but also understood that the villagers' fear and envy could not be dispelled. With Mama Wura's guidance, she continued her preparation for the ceremony, focusing on honoring the goddess who had always watched over her, rather than seeking praises from the people. The day of grand ceremony honoring Iyemoja finally arrived, and the village of Ireti was filled with excitement. People from neighboring villages poured in, bringing gifts, food, and music to celebrate the goddess who had saved them from the fire. The villagers, dressed in vibrant color, their attire adorned with beads and cowrie shell, as they made their way to the river bank for the ceremony. Amara, dressed in a simple white gown, stood quietly by the water edge. Though the celebration was meant to honor Iyemoja, many eyes were on her. The elders, particularly Chief Durojaye, watched her closely, still curious about the power she seemed to possess. Meanwhile, Ekene, the chief's son, lurked into the background. His jealousy arose like a wound that would never heal. As the ceremony began, Mama Wura led the villagers in songs of praises, her voice rising like the wind over the waters. She poured libation into the rivers, offering prayers to Iyemoja, calling her for her continuous protection and guidance. The villagers sang and danced, their spirits high, unaware of the storm within their midst. Ekene could not stand seeing Amara being praised by the villagers, so he came up with a wicked plan. He spread rumors among the most gullible villagers, convincing them that Amara was using a dark magic to control Iyemoja's power for herself. He whispered that it wasn't the goddess who saved the village from the fire, but Amara, trying to raise her own status and take control over everyone. As the ceremony reached its peak, Ekene made a move with few villagers behind him. He stepped forward, interrupting Mama Wura's prayer. "Stop," he shouted, his voice cutting through the joyous singing. "We can't continue this celebration without facing the truth." The crowd was silent. The crowd went silent, turning to look at Ekene as he pointed accusing finger at Amara. "This girl," he said, "is not a servant of Iyemoja. She had been using a dark power to trick us. She pretends to be humble, but she's really a witch, trying to control the village." Silence filled the air, and crowd murmured in confusion and fear. The villagers, unsure of what to believe, looked at Ekene and Amara. Seeing their hesitation, Ekene proceeded on. "Why should we trust a girl whose parents abandoned her? She was born during a cursed storm, and it's no coincidence that the trouble follow her wherever she goes." Amara stood frozen in shock, her heart racing. She expected resistance, but not such a harsh attack in front of everyone. Mama Wura stepped forward, her eyes blazing with anger. "How dare you speak such lies in Iyemoja's presence," she said, her voice calm but filled with power. "The goddess knows the truth, and she will show it to everyone." But Ekene wasn't done. "If you are so sure that Iyemoja is on your side, let her prove it," he challenged. "Let Amara call on the goddess right now, and if Iyemoja truly favors her, we will all see it." The crowd held its breath, waiting for a response. Amara, shaken by the accusation, felt a growing wave of doubt pressing down on her. Could she truly call upon Iyemoja in such public moments? Would the goddess hear her plea among this fear and hatred? Summoning courage, Amara stepped forward. She knelt at the edge of the river, her heart racing. "Iyemoja," she whispered, her voice trembling, "Mother of the waters, if I have ever been true to you, if my heart remained pure, I ask you to reveal the truth to these people. Show them your power." For a long moment, nothing happened. The water of the river remained still, and the crowd began to murmur once more. Ekene was happy, confident that his scheme had worked, but not just as he opened his mouth to speak again. A sudden wind swept through the gathering, and the river began to ripple. The wind grew stronger, and the ripple turned to waves. The villagers were surprised as the water parted, and from the depth of the river a figure began to rise. It was Iyemoja herself. Her form was so beautiful, adorned with flower robes, her face both beautiful and fairness. "Iyemoja has heard," Mama Wura cried, falling to her knees in reverence. The crowd followed suit, trembling in fear, as the river goddess emerged fully from the waters. Iyemoja's voice echoed like a thunder over the water. "You dare question the child who is under my protection?" she shouted, her voice fixed on Ekene. "Amara's heart is pure, and her prayer is sincere. It was through her faith that I saved this village, and now you seek to destroy her with your lies?" Ekene, shaken with fear, tried to speak, but no sound came out from his mouth. Iyemoja raised her hand, and the ground beneath him began to tremble. "You, who had spread deceit and envy, will face the consequences of your action." With a single wave of her hand, Iyemoja sent a rush of water from the river, sweeping Ekene away. The villagers watched in stunned silence as it disappeared into the depths, never to be seen again. As Iyemoja turned her gaze toward the trembling crowd, she spoke with authority. "Let this be a lesson to all. Those who walk in truth will always be protected, while those who harbor malice will be cast out. Amara is my child, and she shall never again be forsaken." With that, the goddess slowly went back into the river, leaving the villagers in the state of fear. Amara, still kneeling down, felt a wave of peace washing over her as the goddess' presence faded away. The villagers, now fully realizing the truth, rushed to her side, begging for forgiveness and vowing to honor her. In the weeks that followed, the village of Ireti transformed. Amara, now a symbol of purity and divine favor, was embraced wholeheartedly by the community. The elders and the villagers, humbled by their previous doubts, sought to make amends and ensure that Amara's role in their life was honored and cherished. The annual celebration of Iyemoja became a grand festival in her honor, a testament to the goddess' blessing and Amara's unwavering faith. The village thrived under a new spirit of unity and respect, and Amara's life, once marked by solitude and hardship, became a beacon of hope and redemption for all. The disappearance of Ekene left the village of Ireti shaken but deeply humbled. The villagers, who had once scorned and feared Amara, now sought to honor her, recognizing the divine favor bestowed upon her by Iyemoja. However, for Amara, this newfound status came with an unexpected burden. After so long Feeling like an outcast, this sudden shift from being overlooked to being reverent was overwhelming. The day after the ceremony, the village elders gathered once again under the great bamboo tree. This time, their tone was different. Chief Durojaye, who had initially been skeptical, spoke with a new-found respect. Amara, he said softly, the village owes you more than we can ever repay. Iyemoja herself has shown us that you are the chosen one. We ask that you guide us alongside with Mama Rura as a bridge to the goddess. The villagers nodded in agreement, their face full of hope. But despite the reverence and power now bestowed upon her, Amara felt uneasy. She had never sought authority or control. She only wanted to be loved and accepted. The idea of becoming a spiritual leader responsible for the village connection to the Iyemoja felt both foreign and doubting. But after a moment of contemplation, Amara addressed the elders. I am honored by Iyemoja's favor, but I do not possess Mama Rura's wisdom and experience. I am still learning. I ask only to continue serving Iyemoja and the village in whatever way I can. Mama Rura, standing before her, smiled warmly. Amara is right. The path of spiritual guidance is not one to be rushed. She will continue to grow in her connection to Iyemoja, but for now, we must give her time to learn and understand her role fully. Together, we will serve the village, and Iyemoja will show us the way. The elders, satisfied with Mama Rura's counsel, agreed and promised to support Amara in her journey. But Amara still felt that something was unresolved. She had been given a gift by Iyemoja, but what should she do with it? How could she ensure that her connection to the goddess would work for good? In the weeks that followed, the village of Ireti thrived. Amara, under Mama Rura's guidance, learned more about the ways of Iyemoja. She performed rituals at the river and helped the village in time of need. With Iyemoja's blessing, the village crops flourished, the river provided bountiful fish, and peace reigned again. Yet, as Amara's influence grew, so did the challenges. Some villagers, once openly hostile, now approached her constantly, seeking favor and blessing from Iyemoja through her. Initially, eager to help, Amara soon found the demand exhausting. The pressure mounted and she began to feel drained, unable to keep up with the village increasing expectation. Some started to treat her as if she were a direct manifestation of Iyemoja, expecting miracles at every turn. One evening, after a long day of listening to the villagers' request, Amara retreated to the riverbank. She knelt by the river, her heart heavy. Iyemoja, she whispered, I'm not sure I'm strong enough for this. I wanted to be accepted, but now it feels like a way I cannot bear. What do I do? As if in response, the river began to shimmer under the moonlight, and a gentle breeze stirred the air. Amara closed her eyes, feeling the presence of the goddess. Iyemoja's voice, soft yet powerful, echoed in her mind. Child of the water, you are not alone. My grace flowed through you, but yet you are still human. You are not meant to carry this burden by yourself. Amara felt a sense of calm wash over her as Iyemoja continued. Guide with love, but remember, you are only the vessel through which I walk. You are not responsible for all the desires of others. Let them know that I am always with them, but they must also seek me in their own hearts. With this newfound understanding, Amara returned to the village, ready to embrace her role, not as a miracle worker, but as a guide who helped the villagers connect to Iyemoja on their own terms. The following morning at the river edge, she called a gathering of the entire village, with Mama Rura by her side. Amara spoke to them. I have heard your request, and I know you seek Iyemoja's blessing. But remember, the goddess is always with us all. I will continue to serve her, but each of you must also seek her in your hearts. Iyemoja listened to every soul, not just mine. The villagers listened, some surprised, but most nodded in understanding. Slowly, they began to rely less on Amara as the intermediary and more on their own prayers and offering. They returned to the roots of their faith, honoring Iyemoja not out of fear, but out of love and respect. As the season drew to a close, peace and balance returned to Ireti. Amara's connection to Iyemoja deepened, not through constant demand, but through quiet moments of reflection and rituals. She learned that the true strength came not from the power over others, but from empowering them to find their own path. With the village of Ireti thriving under the watchful protection of Iyemoja, Amara found herself at peace for the first time in her life. The people had come to accept her not as a miracle worker, but as a humble servant of the goddess, guiding them on their own spiritual journey. The balance in the village was restored, and even the elders who once doubted her now respected her role alongside with Mama Wura. However, as the season changed, the river basked in its prosperity. A new challenge struck, one that would test Amara's faith and the villagers' unity. A long dry spell struck the region, leaving the river that had always been filled with generous shrinking by the day. The crops began to wither, and the fish that once filled their nets were scarce. Fear returned to the village, their mind filled with worry that they had somehow angered Iyemoja. The villagers looked to Amara once again, expecting her to call on the goddess and bring the rain as she had done before. But this time, the river remained silent. No wind rose, and no water stirred in their response of her prayer. Even Mama Wura felt a distance and quiet connection to Iyemoja. The elders began to murmur, their old doubt resurfacing, wondering if they had been deceived once more. Amara, feeling the pressure and responsibility of the villagers' expectation, went to the river every day praying for a sign, for Iyemoja to answer her as she had done in the past. But the river stayed low and the sky stayed clear. Days turned into weeks and the village anxiety grew. One evening, after a long day of unanswered prayer, Amara sat at the river bank, staring at the still water. She had never felt so alone, so unsure of herself. Iyemoja, she whispered, "Have I failed you? Have I led the people astray?" As the moon rose high over the horizon, casting its silver light upon the waters, Amara felt a sudden warmth wash over her. The waters began to shimmer, and from the depths of the river, Iyemoja's form appeared once more. This time, her expression was soft, filled with sincere understanding. "You have not failed me, child," Iyemoja's voice echoed like a gentle rush of wave. "The challenges you have faced now are not punishment, nor are they tests of your worth. They are parts of natural cycle, a balance that must be maintained." Amara, her heart heavy with worry, asked, "But the villagers is suffering. They look to me, but I have no answers. How can I help them if the rain did not come?" Iyemoja gazed at her with compassion. "The people of Ireti have learned to place their trust in you, but now they must learn to trust in themselves and in the balance of nature. There is no quick solution to this drought, for it is the part of the earth's rhythms. However, I will guide you to help them find strength in each other." With that, Iyemoja's form began to dissolve back into the water, leaving Amara a sense of calm and purpose. The goddess had given her not a direct answer, but a lesson in patience, unity, and resilience. Amara realized that her role was not to resolve the villagers' problems with divine intervention, but to help them come together and survive through their own collective strength. The following morning, Amara gathered the villagers at the river bank. They came with hopeful faces, expecting her to call upon the Iyemoja for rain. But Amara's words were different from what they expected. "We cannot control the rains," she began, "but we can control how we face this challenge. Iyemoja hasn't abandoned us, but we must learn to rely on one another on the earth's natural cycle. These droughts will not end today, but we can work together to find a way through it. At first, there was hesitation. The villagers had grown accustomed to relying on Amaras for divine solution, but soon the wisdom of her words began to settle in. Slowly, they began to work together, pooling their resources, conserving waters, and finding a way to protect their crops and livestock from the worst of the drought. Mama Wura and the elders, inspired by Amara's calm leadership, helped organize efforts to dig deeper wells and build protective shelter for the crops to shield them from scorching sun. The villagers became a hive of activity, with everyone contributing in some way to ensure their survival. The drought dragged for months, but through their unity, the villagers endure. They support one another, sharing what little they had, and drawing on the strength that came from the collective effort. And throughout it all, Amara remained a beacon of calm, reminding them that Iyemoja's presence was always with them, even in time of hardship. Finally, after many long months, the sky began to shift. Dark clouds gathered on the horizon, and a cool breeze blew through the village. The villagers, weary but hopeful, watched as a fresh drop of rain fell from heaven, soaking into the dry earth. The rivers swelled once more, and the crops, once parched, began to flourish. The village celebrated, not just for the return of the rain, but for the strength they had found within themselves. They no longer looked to Amara for every answer. They honored her for guiding them through the hardest time with wisdom, patience, and faith. Amara, standing at the river edge, watching as the water flowed freely once more, she knew that her journey as Iyemoja's vessel was far from over, but she had learned not in controlling the elements or calling forth miracles. It lay in guiding others to discover their own strength, in showing them that Iyemoja's blessing was not just in the rain, but in love, unity, and perseverance of a community.